Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us here tonight. Hovav, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay, great. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kate Rosenberg. I'm the Executive Director of the New Israel Fund Australia. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm taking this call from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the East Kulin Nations and pay my respect to their elders past and present, and hope and wish for the day that Israelis and Palestinians can have a similar form of acknowledgement before their special events and occasions. Um, we're really pleased to kick off this series, KOLOT, which means voices in Hebrew, um, to have a look at what it looks like on the ground in the lead up to the 2026 elections. And in conceiving this idea, the team and I, thought about what it is that Australians who support the New Israel Fund will want to be listening to and want to understand in the lead up to the elections. I know you'll all be reading various newspapers, listening to your favorite analysts, speaking to your friends and family in Israel. And what we hope that this series really provides for our community is an understanding of what many of our grantees do generally, and then we'll be continue to do during the elections. So it's important for me to remind everybody that the New Israel Fund doesn't support any one candidate or party. What we support is democracy and human rights and equality. And during an election period, those are elements and values that I know are important to all of us and important to the staff at NIF and important to our grantees. And so we'll be providing you a little bit of a window or an introduction into many of these, into their work in the lead up to the election. So a very quick introduction to about the New Israel Fund. If there's anyone new that is unfamiliar with our work, we support civil society organizations in Israel, upholding the rights of democracy, freedom of expression, equality, an end to the occupation, and safety and freedom for Israelis and Palestinians. And I'm really pleased to introduce you tonight to Hovav Yannai, the director of our Safeguarding Civil Rights and Democracy program. And I will turn it over to him in just one moment, but I want to say a few words about the New Israel Fund and the way that we're structured. Many of you who have supported the New Israel Fund over the years will know us by the grantees that we choose to support. But I want you to step back for a moment and understand that the grantees that we are supporting come at the end of the process of a strategic understanding or a strategic process that the staff and the board and supporters of NIF go through in order to understand what are the pressing issues in this moment in Israel that are standing between us and a thriving democracy, are standing between us and human rights and equality for all of Israel's citizens. And through that strategy, we're able to support certain areas of work, certain programs. And the programs themselves, and Hovav is the director of one of these programs, then goes out to have to survey the field of civil society organizations to understand which are the most effective, which are the most robust organizations and programs that are doing the work out there that will lead us to this theory of change. So we've asked Hovav to kick off this series because the series is all about safeguarding civil rights and democracy in the lead up to the election. And really tonight in this first session, Hovav will help to explain to us the concepts behind the division that he runs at the New Israel Fund. So I've spoken a lot and enough, but I'm going to ask Hovav a few questions and then open it up to the audience to ask questions. And I hope you enjoy the evening. So first of all, Hovav, would you mind introducing yourself to us and telling us a little bit about your life growing up in Israel and how it is that you came to be in this position at the New Israel Fund?
So thank you, Kate, and thank you to NIF Australia for your support. We appreciate it a lot, and it helps us to do good work. So nice to meet you all. I'm Hovav Yannai. I'm 42 years old almost. It's in September. I grew up in a kibbutz in Ashdod Yaakov. This is in the Jordan Valley in Israel. I think that when you ask me how I became to be a worker in the New Israel Fund, I think about my military service. I was a translator in the military court in a place that now, when I'm thinking about it, this is the real place that there is one law for Israeli Jews in the West Bank and another law for Palestinians in the West Bank. And I think that at the moment I didn't really understand what my military service is, but I was studying Middle Eastern studies in the Hebrew University, and then I became to think about what I did in my military service and to understand the history and politics of the Middle East. And then I really became leftist. I really became to believe in the values of peace and equality and justice. And in my studies, I was volunteering in a lot of organizations and things to do in the Hebrew University campus. And then I started to work in the Social Guard. It was an organization that founded after the 2011 social protest in Israel. And after 3 years as a Knesset coordinator in the Social Guard, I got to work in the New Israel Fund as a policy advocator of the New Israel Fund, Shatil at the time. And after few years working in the field of democracy and human rights in the Knesset, I got to this position as the director or the manager of the program to safeguarding civil rights and democracy at NIF. So this is pretty much in short.
What languages were you translating in the courts between?
To Arabic, but right now I don't speak really good Arabic. It takes a lot of working on it and doing it um,
Of
and
course.
practice. So yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what your team does at the New Israel Fund and who makes up your team?
So firstly, as the program manager, me and my team are dealing with all that relates to our grants, to our grant making, to the organization, and to our organizing work, meaning me and my team bring the organizations together, both grantees and non-grantees, to make better work as a collaborative effort. But before I start about what my team does, I want to say a few words about what the program really means and how does it works, and then we will get to what me and my team does. We have a small team, but very qualified team. So the role of the program to safeguard civil rights and democracy, the overarching goal is to help organizations and activists to be able to perform and to act freely, without interruptions, without violence against them. And this is in the light of combined long-term attack from Israeli government and both right-wing violent people who are seeking and chasing after organizations and activists to act in favor of peace, justice, equality, and democracy. So our role, firstly, is to help them to perform and to act. So this is the overarching goal of the program. And from this overarching goal, we have three specific objectives. One is to slow down the attacks, mainly the attacks on the regulatory level and the legislation level. I don't know if you know, but there are certain legislation that the Israeli Knesset tried to run against civil society organizations. They didn't really succeed now as the Knesset goes to recess before election. We did a good work there, but there are a lot of other fronts in this effort. So this is one level to slow down the attack. The second level is to respond to attacks that already happening. We're doing it both in the level of litigation and courts, in the public level to speak out against the attack, and in the community level to create legitimacy for people to act and to perform and to be strong when they are holding their positions in favor of peace and justice and equality and democracy. So this is the second level. And the third level is that unfortunately we still need to look forward for worse scenarios and to see how do we secure civil society activity in Israel, even in harsher conditions. So on this level, we are trying to look forward to strategic development. Neither are some development or difficulties in the level of fundraising, or is it the Israeli police and the reality in the Israeli security forces that the chief of the security forces saying that he will serve the current government and not the law. So these are the challenges that we're looking forward. So under these three specific objectives, we have our grant making work. We, as you said, Kate, we are looking at our field and thinking about what the organizations need to do and who can perform this work most efficiently. And we are dividing our grants to the organizations. We have today in the program $2.4 million US dollar grants that we give under this program. So this is one very big work what they do, that, and it goes all along the year. It's not just the one day that we decide who will be in our list. And the second activity, the second main activity in our program is our organizing work. This is the place that I feel the New Israel Fund has very strong added value to the field. This is where we bring organizations together, thinking together about the challenges, thinking about the opportunities, and what our activities should be in all levels of the activity of the program, both slowing down the attacks, defend against them, and thinking about the strategic challenges. And this is place also that we combining organizations that are non-grantees, and this is how we spreading the word about what we do all around the Israeli civil society.
Amazing. So can you give us an example of some of the activity or the legislation that you were able to slow down in the last few years? That might be.
So I will give two brief examples. One is our core activity or core mission to protect civil society. We defended from the legislation against the civil society organizations. The legislation aimed against organizations who receive what is called in the Israeli law foreign state funding to civil society organizations. And it's important to say that a lot of Jewish philanthropists said to the committee that discussed this bill that they raised a lot of the organizations with their own money, and then they are feeling proud that they fundraise from foreign government and friendly governments to Israel. It's not that they are enemy states or something like that. And we succeed to slow this legislation down. We've been in 13 meetings of the Judiciary and Justice Committee of the Knesset, chaired by MK Simcha Rothman from Tzionut Datit Party. And we were very, I think, very creative in the way that we manifested the damage to Israeli civil society. And we tried all the time to widen our addressing to this law, not only with specific organizations, but to say that the damage to Israeli civil society is very wide. And this is how we managed to slow it down. It was very successful. Second example will be around the communication law. Just passed the Knesset second and third reading, unfortunately, but the Israeli High Court, Supreme Court, ruled that it will be. Yeah, Kate,
Do
yeah,
you
you
want
want
to
to say
just
something?
explain what it is? Some people will be
Yeah, it
familiar
is.
and some people will be less familiar.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's important to say. Thank you. It is a very big reform in the legislation and the regulatory conditions of the Israeli broadcasting, but it is consist very strong political components of the regulatory body that in charge of these broadcasting services, that it will be very political, very affiliated to the government, to the current government. And for this matter, the Israeli Supreme Court ruled that the legislation will not be in effect, and hopefully with another government, it will be turned down.
Thanks for those examples. And sorry, I'm just posting in the chat an article that the Jewish Independent published a little while back that covers the Australian philanthropists who spoke out against the bill as well. Some of you will know some of these names well. So what are you most concerned about in the lead up to the elections? What are you and your team watching? And maybe who are some of the grantees that are doing some of the work that you think might counter these concerns?
Yeah, so I think one concern and something positive that might happen. But first, with a concern, because it's easier to be concerned these days. Um, Israel is suffering a strong political division, very polarized society. This right-wing extreme government helped it a lot in the sense that they try to promote very, very radical changes for the Israeli society. Partly succeeded. Hopefully, they didn't succeeded in all things that they wanted to promote. And of course, it was a very bad government in any other measures. Of course, October 7th and the horrible, horrible, horrible war, not only in Gaza, in Lebanon, and Iran, and very bad things that this government, and in West Bank, a lot of bad things that this government did. And so the Israeli society is entering election campaign in a very polarized society. And in this reality, the main challenge or the main threat that we detect for Israeli society is a violent, very violent political campaign. And in this sense, we detect not only violence, but also to hurt the integrity and the conditions that these elections will be. And under this threat, we are trying to give an answer to the threat by monitoring all the time the activity of some right wing, not only bullies but also government things that are trying to hurt the integrity of the elections campaign. Either it's from government campaigns like against Arab factions in the Knesset and about their ability to be presented as candidates in the Knesset, or its violent activities against campaigns, against activists, against people who are demonstrating in the streets. And as for now, some of the initiatives of the government and the right-wing coalition stopped at this moment. For example, under a law that they try to promote that will um, that will change the regulatory conditions for factions to run to the Knesset. They wanted to increase the level of saying who is supporting terror or something like that. This is in the light of the ability of Arab society factions and candidates to run to Knesset. So this is stopped at the moment. And on the other level, we are witnessing um, campaigns mainly against Arab society voters, trying to confuse them and to make some kind of impact efforts in the Israeli society to polarize more, to divide more. And by watching what is happening in the street, in the web, we're trying to bring things to the public knowledge and then to fight it in the Election Central Committee, which is the body that in charge of the integrity campaign in the Knesset, and both in Supreme Courts and both in the public level. So this is our main concern. This is something that I hope will not evolve to a very violent election campaign, but you know, this is what we hope to stop. And I want to say something optimistic, and I hope that you will join me with my optimism, and I hope it will not be wishful thinking, is that when we are looking forward for more possibilities in the political reality in Israel, I think that there will be things we will want to bring back legislation in favor of democracy, in favor of checks and balances in the Israeli system, in favor of freedom of protest, um, to do things inside the Israeli bodies and mechanism in the police that, we almost losing it under the ruling of the fascist minister Ben Gvir. I hope that we will be able to do good changes there. Of course, in the Israeli security services, that, as I mentioned before, the chief of the service is saying that he will be in charge. He went in charge because of he will be in the service of the government and not for the Israeli law. So I think that being optimistic, I hope we will be able to bring some things forward and to promote our values. Of course, it will not be easy because not of all of what is called the Israeli pro-democratic camp, not all of them are sharing all NIF values, but I hope that many of them are sharing many of NIF values, and we will be in a um, more in a sphere that we will be able to promote more of our agenda. And you ask about some organizations that are working on these issues. Yes, so I forgot. Yeah, just important to mention in the sense of how do we combat violence during election campaign. We have our civil society protection hub that does all this monitoring effort and acts both publicly and both legally against these measures. This is one important actor. We have organizations like Adala, who helps to stop the um, the process of stopping Arab society candidates from running to the Knesset. We have the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, ACRI, that are very strong legal protector against these efforts. And we have some think tanks like Zulat that are mapping and drawing the challenges and suggesting how can we stop or how can we avoid from these challenges. And on the positive level, we are in discussion with all of our grantees about what they are planning to do in a more possible political reality. In the program that I am managing, it goes from ACRI to Zulat to other organizations in the Civil Society Protection Hub and the Human Rights Defenders Fund, for example. And in this way, we'll be able to create more positive agenda to put on the table.
Encouraging that political imagination, I can imagine, is really important to help grantees kind of lift their heads up and look at, well, with whatever change may come with the next government, what can we achieve? It's probably a very difficult question for them to ask themselves in the everyday scramble of what is life. So I think that's a really important element of our work at the New Israel Fund. I'm shortly going to open up for questions from the audience. I can see I'm getting some questions already. I might just ask one more question before I do that. Part of our grant making at the New Israel Fund is made up of what we call our Magen grants. It's an acronym, as we love acronyms in Hebrew. Magen, obviously, in Hebrew means shield, but we explain them as both flexible, emergency, and experimental grants that we make to allies of the New Israel Fund, but also current grantees. Can you give us any examples of some Magen funds that your division has sought to approve or have approved in the last year or so?
Yeah, I will give three, one of each section. But first, before that, it's important to note, in regard to my last answer and to this answer, that safeguarding civil rights and democracy is one program among five in the New Israel Fund. So there are a lot of other things, other good things going on here. So it's just an encouragement for me and for our staff and for our supporters. And in regard to Magen Grant, this is very a creative way that helps us to not only to respond to current attacks, but also to try new things and to promote new things forward. For example, we had a Magen grant for organization called Bizchut that deals with the rights of disabilities in Israel. And one of the important works that Bizchut has done in the last 6 months with their Magen grant is thinking with us about the work around stopping the bill against civil society. The politicians who promoted the bill from the right-wing coalition tried to portray it as a bill against המוקד להגנת הפרט, המוקד, or breaking the silence, or בצלם, or things like that. And they weren't ready for our wide response for this bill. And one of them was the working with Bizchut as the rights of the disabilities in Israel. And this was very important work. They did amazing work in explaining politicians what are the damages, and I think they did a great work with this grant. So I have only good words for them. This is one example. Second example is I mentioned before that one of our objectives in the program is to look at the strategic challenges in the field and trying to suggest some added effort for organizations who we detect in a very stronger or acting in stronger and harsher conditions. And this objective went out or was born from a Magen grant that we gave for this organization that will help us consolidate these ideas about what are the challenges or the threats against civil society, and to try to put them at a risk level, different risk level, and to do risk management for the organization. So this is another example. Now it went in to the core of the program. And a third example will be for organizations that are from time to time coping with regulatory challenges in Israel. For example, when banks are stopping the money transfers for their grants, not from NIF, it can be from any other body or funder. This is one example. Second example, organization that deals with challenges from the NGO registrar that lately funded the enforcement section in the registrar that dealing specifically with organizations who promote peace and justice in Israel for civil society and for our Arab civil society in Israel. And these organizations turn to us and saying, we have this kind of problem, help me to get a lawyer or something like that. And we help them. And this way we are enabling their work. And this is one of the core objectives of the program.
Yeah, wow. I mean, they're everyday issues as a NGO operating in Australia that, yeah, if I had those issues, it would be difficult to find support like what NIF is offering to organizations in Israel. I'm going to have a look at some of the questions that have come in. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk at the moment about Israeli citizens abroad who wish to come in and vote around the elections, and rumors swirling that the government might find ways to stop flights coming in. I don't think any of our grantees work on that area. But from your perspective and as the director of this division, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I would say it this way. Some of the most forces or powers that emerge in the 2023 protest for the Israeli democracy, they are the strong powers that run some of the ideas of how to challenge or to tackle the Minister of Transportation idea to block flights to Israel. It's just crazy. I don't know in something in regard specifically of how to do it, or I haven't heard something about that. I do know that some of the legal organizations like ACRI and others can be very effective in this issue because the entry of Israeli citizens to Israel is in the constitution something that every Israeli citizen is allowed. So stopping Israeli citizens from entering the state is is against not the constitution, it's against the basic law in
Basic.
Israel. Yeah. So this is some place that our organization might come in, and actually it's a great question because it's the first time that I'm thinking about it. And my next call after this conversation will be to Akri to say what can we do in regard to this. So thank you for whoever asked this question.
W-
Um, and I think it not be addressed only in the legal level, but also in the public level. It should be clear that the government is afraid to lose the elections. So this is how they are trying to think of every trick to that they might use to not to lose the election. We saw it also in the election law that passed the Knesset just last week, trying to avoid the polls in the elderly houses in Israel for the elder society that lives in the residence. Um, so yeah, I hope that these efforts will be able to block this unlogic against the basic law initiative.
You can see the kind of questions that people living outside of Israel, or Jews living outside of Israel, or Israeli citizens living outside of Israel, are thinking about in the lead up to the election, just by the question itself. Um, in that vein, um, there are another question is, well, what rights do we have at all to be talking about the Israeli elections or commenting about what may or may not be as people sitting outside of Israel? What role do you think the diaspora can or should have in this moment?
I think it's a crucial role in this moment, and not only, but also in general in the relation between the diaspora to Israel, and mainly in the last almost 4 years of this horrible government. First, you know, look at it in the Zionist perspective. We wish that the state of Israel will be able to flourish, and that people will want to be identified with Israel and to speak out in favor of Israel and to live in Israel and to come back and to feel part of the life here. So this is first thing. I don't think that this, you know, everyone has a right to say something about what is happening in Israel. And I think that it's important that everyone will say it, and not only citizens and not only Jews, just because horrible things are happening in Israel. And this is everyone's matter, but particularly citizens and the Jews in the diaspora. This is one thing I want to say. And, and secondly, it's very bad that Israelis are not aware enough to how Israel is conceived in the diaspora, in friendly states to Israel. You know, what Netanyahu has done in his term, in all of his term, is to divide not only Israeli society, but also Israeli Jews, or Jews and Israelis in the diaspora, who is in favor of us and who is against that. And just look at the US. I'm not an expert in US politics and not in Australian politics, but just looking at what is happening in the US, also American conservatives are turning against Israel, and it's not something that happened, you know, without any context. This is a direct attack against the American Democratic Party, against American liberals. This is a direct result of what Israel has done in Gaza, in the West Bank, in the ongoing war. This is a direct result of the rumors of the things that are talking about in the White House, that Israel is in favor of long-term war. And when the vice president is talking against us this way, this is, a fact that things are bubbling under the ground. And in these conditions, it's very, very, very important that citizens and Jews all around the world will speak out against our government and in favor of peace, justice, and equality. And this is our role as one community of people who are in favor of Israel and justice for Israelis and Palestinians as well.
Thank you, Hovav. I'm sure you are not carefully watching that in Australia at the moment we have a royal commission into anti-Semitism and social cohesion in the wake of the Bondi massacre and anti-Semitism that we've seen across Australia since October 7th. So your words, hit a special spot for me, and I'm sure many of the people that are listening in tonight. I think I have another question about participation of Palestinian citizens of Israel or Arab Israelis and concerns or positive stories about their access to and ability to vote in the upcoming elections.
Yeah, so first I will say some of the challenges, and then I will say something positive because I like that the positive is in the end for the good feeling. Firstly, I think as every minority, the first to be damaged by undemocratic measures are the Palestinian citizens of Israel. And other minorities in Israel, asylum seekers and so on, but especially the Palestinian citizens of Israel. We saw it not only, in the wake of October 7th, but also all along the Israeli history, and mainly now with this crazy, crazy, crazy right-wing government. And unfortunately, even if we will have more better political conditions, some of the actors in the political sphere will want to show their constituencies that they are against some part of the Israeli society and target Palestinian citizens of Israel. Um, look at the war, for example. Yeah, not all of the opposition parties are against the war in general. So in this sense, I believe that there is still a strong challenge that we should address. This is one thing. But particularly speaking about the coming elections, I think that there are a few things that we need to know. First is that the Arab society, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, are very angry about this government that just, abandon them to the crime, to be neglected, um, against this horrible crime wave, not only in the Arab society, but also in the all of the Israeli society, but they are suffering it the most. People cannot walk safely in the Arab towns and villages. This is horrible. This is horrible, and the Arab citizens are angry, and they feel that there is difference between the change government in 2021, 2022, and the current government, and they are willing to go out to vote. This is one thing it's important to say. Secondly, it's still unclear in what way the Arab politicians will run to the Knesset. Either it will be one joint list, or either it will be in separate lists. I think that it's important for me as an Israeli Jew, and important for all people in Israel or that relates to Israel and care about Israel, to acknowledge that as the same as the Jewish politics, I would say this way, consist different factions, different parties with different agenda. This is the same in the Arab society. They have different agenda, different perspective. It's not that we can say, okay, all of them are Arabs and they will go with one joint list, because I think that this is quite racist. And I believe that the Arab leaders will do what is best for their constituencies. I believe that I hope that they will be part of the next government or coalition, even if they will support the government from outside. And we're talking about some projections that the voting rate will increase from 50, 55, I don't remember the exact number in 2022, to around 70. This is incredible increase, and I hope that the crime and the
Sorry, that's within the Israeli Arab
no, this is
population.
only in the Palestinian Arab
Yeah.
Society of Israel. 55 to 70, more or less. I don't catch me in
No,
the
but
exact
that's
numbers.
significant increase.
Yeah. And I hope that the crime and violence will not avoid people from, not the crime and violence, not the actions against candidates and leads, and that people will feel free to, to accomplish their, or to raise their voice through the ballot.
So on that, we'll be talking later on in the series to folks at Kadaya, and also to folks from Have You Seen the Horizon lately, to cover some of these issues. So that's a nice little teaser for what will be coming next. Um,
Great organizations.
Pardon?
Not under my program, but they are doing very important work.
Yeah, exactly. And so just to mention as well, as you were talking, some of the organizations that the Australia New Israel Fund chapter has supported for many years is the Association for Civil Rights Israel, ACRI, and Adala as well. And we're really proud to be able to contribute to some of the work that you're doing in your division. Um, I want to really thank you for your time, and ask you if there's any kind of final words of hope that you might want to share with our folks, before I make a plug for some future events that we have coming up.
Yeah, so last one thing. One of the main challenges in Israel, it will might sound to you quite theoretically, but this is very practical, is that we don't have true political competition. It means that one who is against the occupation in favor of peace, justice, equality, and democracy, the Israeli government and their people who support them, they're trying to delegitimize their opinions and their thoughts. And one of the reasons that I feel that my work is very, very, very important is that when we are enabling people to raise their voice, we are increasing the political competition. When there is no political competition, politicians might believe that a terror organization like Hamas is an asset. When there is no political competition, people, can take all of their powers to themselves, as Netanyahu is trying to do. So this is why political competition is not something theoretical, it's something very living and practical. And this is why I believe we are doing a good work. We will work as hard as we can, to achieve our goals and to explain Israeli society why democracy and political competition is important to them, and to enable all of the organizations that we support that doing such a good work to flourish and to succeed, and to hope that to create better reality in Israel, not in the far future, but in the most coming future.
Amen and inshallah. We hope that this will come to be. Um, I want to mention that on the 3rd of August at 7 p.m., we'll be speaking with Noah Satat from Association for Civil Rights Israel as our second session of the KOLOT series and invite everyone to join us for that talk. I also want to announce that this week we are launching our New Gen Summit. This is a program for 20 to 30-year-olds to spend a weekend in Canberra learning leadership skills, meeting with politicians, and learning more about the New Israel Fund and our work. And applications will open a little bit later this week. But for those listening, if you have 20 or 30-year-olds, something's in your lives, please encourage them to apply. And just to thank Hovav again for joining us, and thank you for your work and your dedication. And I hope to see you soon in Israel. And please send our best to all of the team. And thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you all for the support.
Excellent. Good night and have a good day, Hovav.
Thank you.